Welcome to She's a Full-On Monet, a digital lifestyle magazine for women. Every week, our editor-in-chief, Kelly Castillo, along with Megan Block and special guests, participate in a deep dive discussion about recent articles and topics we have covered. We invite you to become part of our community where everyone's welcome.
Welcome to She's a Full-On Monet. This is our second episode, podcast episode 2. So we want to thank you guys for your patience. We are new to this and we are learning as we go. So hopefully you guys understand that and can be a little patient with the process. We promise we will be fast learners. It will be a more polished product as time goes on. I have no doubt.
We've done it before.
Yeah, exactly. Now we have one episode under our belts. We feel like we're practically pros, right?
Right. This is how this works now. We get it. Yeah, we're professionals.
We're throwing ourselves in the deep end of the pool and figuring out how to swim as we go. So thank you for being with us in the journey. I'm Kelly and I have with me Megan.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, guys. So Megan, what's going on with you right now?
Well,
your kids just went back to school, but then they didn't, right?
Yeah, no, my kids went back to school and they didn't. Yeah, one of them, my preschooler, went back to school and brought home a cold, which gave it to my third grader. But because of the time we're in, they either have to get like a negative COVID test, or stay home a mandatory 10 days. And Emma, my oldest, is just not about the COVID test. She has some anxiety stuff. So her dad
they stab your literal brain.
It's not like the test is bad, but the idea of, she's heard enough stories from her friends who've had it done where it's like the anticipation of it will break her, that we're just like, we'll just keep you home for 10 days, which sounds crazy, but she's going to school for 3 hours a day anyway. So it's like, whatever. So she's home.
Noise in the background, you can hear it.
She's home, and then I have my youngest home too, just because, why not today? Because I was like, having to get her and pick her up is actually adding more to my day than just keeping her home. So Today is a bit of a juggle, but normally they are not here, and my Wednesdays are normally just like bliss in the morning.
So they're having a sister day, and that's kind of cute.
Yes. So they're having a sister day and watching a movie and trying to figure life out, which would normally be great if they didn't do it for like 200-300 straight days. This year. They were like, we're a sister day out. Like, we're over each other. But yeah, I'm good. I'm happy to be back, and I'm happy to be talking about our subjects today because it is one that is like something that I feel like I have some stuff to say about it. I'm a follower of the person we are going to be talking about in the subject. And so, yeah, take it away, Kelly.
Okay, so today we're going to talk about an article that we recently published about some of the controversy going on around Rachel Hollis and some controversial TikTok videos that she made, some controversial statements that she made. And I'm going to preface this by saying I have not read her books or listened to her podcast. I'm familiar with who she is and kind of what her brand is about, but I've never actually picked up one of her books. For a while I had meant to, but to be honest, like the tone kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and I didn't even give her an opportunity to like have me become a fan. I think it was the way the books like Girl Wash Your Face, Girl Stop Apologizing were titled, kind of felt I don't know, uncomfy. I didn't like it. I also have I don't like being talked, like I have a huge problem with authority. I don't like being talked patronizing to. I don't really react well to it. So I felt the titles were a little bit patronizing. And that's probably why I never got around to reading them. But I know who she is, and I know has been wildly popular. I assume that her message, really speaks to a lot of people. And I think women and mom life and wife life and just life in general in this day and age, we do look for people who seem to have not so much have the answers, but who have a message that will help us through it and help us navigate it. And so there's always a huge market for that. There's always a place for these influencer type people, authors, motivational people who can speak to that, because there's a need for it for sure. but this, Rachel's TikToks that she has recently posted have been really problematic, and there's been a big backlash. So we want to talk about that, and we want to talk about, as a brand, I had a personal blog for quite a while. I have a lot of friends who do. As a person who makes yourself into a brand, how is that problematic for you? And what are the expectations that followers kind of put on you as a person to be an idealized version of yourself and to be at the same time authentic? And how do we do that? How much do we show? Are we able to keep some things in our life private when we're a public figure? And are we entitled to that privacy if we've chosen to make ourselves a public figure? So those are things that are interesting to me to talk about with this, because, and I always kind of try to at least lead with compassion over judgment. So I'm not here to like call her out and say, oh, she did this, she's terrible. Because I do think that everybody makes mistakes, and I like to believe that people have good intentions and they're doing the best that they can. I like to believe that about everybody. So I'm sure she did not intend her comments to come across the way that they did, partly because she's a businesswoman and I don't think she would have done that, because it really was negative for her, the consequences, but also because I don't think she realized how people were going to, take what she said, and whatever her original intent was, I don't think it was how it came across. But we can talk about so Rachel Hollis, she's a big influencer. She's like a motivational author and speaker. She has a podcast, I think several maybe podcasts. She's written a few books, most famously Girl Wash Your Face. She also wrote Girl Stop Apologizing. And she recently posted a couple of TikToks. The first one, she had referred to her housekeeper as the sweet woman who cleans my toilets. I think those were the words that were taken, out of the context of the TikTok, and they did not sit well with a lot of people. And then she apologized for saying that, but a fan had called her out for the comment she made about the woman who cleans her toilets and how that made her not relatable. So she responded to that commenter, and not very defensively, and said she had no desire to be relatable. She's never desired to be relatable, that she works way too hard and does way too much for people to be able to relate to her, which, she's entitled to however she sees herself and however she wants to respond to her followers. But in that response TikTok, she had captioned it Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Harriet Tubman, Frida Kahlo, Malala, and other influential people in history, and said they were all unrelatable. So people took that as her comparing herself to these, icons of history and icons of feminism and icons of civil rights. And that did not sit well at all with anybody, I think. And I don't know how she meant that to come across. I can only assume she was kind of going along the lines of, well-behaved women rarely make history kind of a thread, but it's never a good look to put yourself in the same category as women like that. I mean, even if you are in that category, it's not good to self-profess it. It's okay if other people make comparisons, but not yourself. And so that didn't sit well with a lot of people. She's had a lot of backlash. In the end, she did issue another apology, which she had kind of put everything onto her team, saying that, she had not responded earlier because she expected her team to handle it, and they had not handled it properly. So I don't know. I don't know how you recover from this. I don't know how much damage it did to her career and her reputation, but it was something we definitely should talk about.
I agree. No, it's funny. I came across Rachel Hollis. I bought one of her books because somebody had recommended it. And to be honest, I read 4 chapters and it was like, okay, like it was more about just like who she was and how she became who she was. And there were some nice messages, but it wasn't really like a favorite read of mine. So I stopped reading it. But then, I started sort of having this need to find, not a therapist, but some way to kind of self-cope, especially during this pandemic. And so podcasts, self-help podcasts are great because, I wasn't about to go find a therapist during a pandemic. And I ran across Rachel Hollis, and at her time, her husband, David Hollis's, they had like a joint podcast.
Like a marriage-based podcast, right?
Yes. Yes. And so, like any relationship-based podcasts, that they're always great additions when you're trying to, work through problems in your own relationships. And so I started to really follow her and her husband. And then I started to follow her on her own. And I loved the fact that she didn't present herself in a way where it was like pre-recorded, like she didn't practice to be perfect. She was just she spoke very freely, but it wasn't too many F-bombs. It wasn't too off-putting. It was just in a way that I kind of related to and really liked how she spoke. So I've been a fan of her podcast for a really long time. Even after this whole thing happened and, her divorce happened and everything, I still followed her because I felt like it made her more relatable, because in a way where it's like, you had a marriage podcast and everything, and then this happens. Like, how are you doing? I'm sure you have a lot of realness to you. It breaks my heart to hear this, because I do feel an empathy for her, because I do feel like we all make mistakes, right? And maybe the way it sounded wasn't what she intended. I personally run my own social media as like a brand within myself. I run it like a business, my own personal Instagram. And so I have gotten all sorts of comments and DMs of people expecting me to be a certain way or say a certain thing, or if I do something that they don't feel is on brand within who I'm supposed to be, I get attacked for it. I've been attacked for it before. And my first thought is like, I'm not some sort of role model. Like, you chose to idolize me in this way. That's like my first thought, right? But it doesn't make it true. When you do sign on to be a certain, like people look up to you, you do have an obligation to be very careful about the things you say and what you put out there. And as real as you want to be, that's fine to an extent, but you still have an obligation because you have a brand to protect, So if you're going to go out there on TikTok, you better be careful with what you're saying, because there will be backlash for it. Whether you have a small little Instagram or you're an actual brand within yourself, you always have an obligation, to be very careful about the things that you're putting out into social media, because they're going to be microscoped and looked at very carefully, and you're going to get backlash for it, So as much as I want to be like, oh, I get it, like we all make mistakes. When she says she doesn't want to she never signed up to be a role model, but yeah, you kind of did, I've heard other music artists and actresses say that before. And it's like, you don't mind the privileges that come from it, but you have a problem with when people hold you accountable. Oh, all of a sudden you don't want to be a role model. You were a role model the minute that you became some sort of public brand figure, et cetera, et cetera.
And I think especially for Rachel, because she can talk about how, she really responded negatively to that fan who said that she didn't come across as relatable, by saying she had never had any intent to be relatable. She's not relatable because of her business and how hard she works. But the entirety of her message in her books is that she's relatable, that she's just like us.
That's why I gravitated towards her. She was relatable to me. I felt like, I finally found someone who wasn't perfect, like, and now all of a sudden you're not relatable, then I have no idea who you are. And I have no idea how to feel about you, because I thought you were relatable. It just
if we're not supposed to relate to her, then why are we supposed to listen to her message and her advice? She literally wrote advice books. And you have to relate to the people you're giving advice to in order to give any kind of helpful advice. I mean, it's you can't have it both ways. And I think, public figures, whether it's Rachel Hollis, whether it's the Kardashians, whether it's a singer or an actor or whoever, if you have chosen to put yourself into the public arena, you have to be so careful about the things that you say. That's why they have PR teams where they run everything through them to make sure, because we are all coming from our own perspective and only our own perspective. Anyone can easily say something that offends someone of a totally different lifestyle just because they aren't aware, not because they have intent to offend or they have prejudices or biases, but just simply because they haven't lived that life and they don't even know that it's offensive. And it's good to call people out on those things a little bit, because that is how we learn, and that is how we understand other people's perspectives. And we say, wow, I never knew that that could be taken that way. I will be more careful in the future. That's all that really needs to be said.
Yeah.
But
Because you wrote a book saying, girls, stop apologizing, yet you've apologized 4 times, when you could have just done it right the first time and stop apologizing. And then at the end, to put it off on your team doesn't even feel like you held any bit of accountability, you know? So,
and this is different than if she had been taped having a private conversation with someone at a social event, or and that went out. That to me is a very different thing.
yeah.
I mean, you're still accountable for everything that you say, and no matter what the context is. But when you've put it on your platform as a TikTok, as a tweet,
And you hit post,
you make a post and you put it out there for consumption by the world at large, yeah, you're going to be held accountable.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that you have to understand, that everything you say has consequences, and that people are listening to you as a role model, whether you like it or not. People are listening to what you have to say. And so you can use your platforms to spread, kindness and goodness and awareness, or you can use them to kind of perpetuate something negative. And I for one, and I understand her apologies. I do think everyone should have the ability to apologize when they make a mistake, because everybody makes mistakes. But it really did not sit well with me, almost more than the comparing herself to like Harriet Tubman and Malala. I think that was just ridiculous, self-inflation. But to talk about the woman who she has in her home helping her as the sweet lady that cleans my toilets was really, for me, the issue, because the dehumanization of calling someone the woman who cleans my toilets as if that is her sole defining characteristic. I mean, not to mention, I'm sure that's not the only function that she serves, even in her job role for you. I'm sure she is an all-around amazing help in the house, and she does not just scrub toilets. It was just the most low base way of referring to someone. And it goes against my personal principles that all work is honorable and everyone deserves respect, and looking down on anyone because of what they do for their job. It doesn't matter, where you are in your life or where they are in their life. If someone is contributing to society as large, is working, that is so honorable in my mind. And it doesn't matter what role that is.
Yeah, it was the words too. It was just like, I just keep hearing it, oh, the sweet lady that cleans my toilets. And it's just like, oh my gosh, it's, she said a lot within a very little amount. And it's like, you don't realize the impact that you have on your word choice. And like, she chose to post that. I don't even know who that was for. Like, is this, are you trying? I don't,
it
certainly
shows
not to be relatable.
It shows such a disconnect from what's going on in the world right now, from the point of privilege where she comes from, the people who are struggling. Like, it showed such a disconnect to me.
It'll be a hard climb to get out from this. But I mean, there are people that really, that she's helped shift, small or big, their lives, and they are fans of hers, and they're also looking to her to fix this, because they don't want to be like, have I been like duped this whole time? Was I following some sort of a fraud this whole time? Like, the people that really do like her, also, she also owes some sort of bigger, I mean, it's going to take a while. I'll be interested to see where she goes from here with it, because, her podcasts, I mean, I guess we'll try and work on being more relatable to people, because that's what her brand is. I mean, I don't, like, every episode is how to change some small part of your life, whether it's a habit. I mean, I learned a lot of my good habits from her,
Yeah.
She has,
that's part of the reason this is so disappointing, because this was such an opportunity for her to address it in the proper way, and to have that moment of I made a mistake, and I learned from it, and this is why this was a mistake to refer to someone that way or to say what I said. And this is what I'm doing to make changes to
Yeah.
learn and to make sure that I don't do that exact mistake again. I mean, it as a teacher of women on how to live better lives, like that was a fantastic opportunity for her to be able to show how to recover from a mistake and how to grow and learn as a person, because
Mhm.
we all have moments where we say the wrong thing, do the wrong thing. And in the climate that we're living in today, we're all learning so much about each other and culturally and as a society. And we all are all can I talk today? Are all learning like new terms. And I mean, I've had conversations with my husband about like pronouns because he's a lot older than me and he doesn't understand. I have to really like hold his hand and walk him through a lot of these new things that are going on in society, which are super positive. People are living authentic lives and it's amazing. But there are going to be hiccups, there are going to be issues. And so this was an opportunity for her to show the, you know, her followers a way to kind of course correct and walk back a mistake of a slip of the tongue, whether it was that or whether it was her needing to unlearn some biases that she had of her own and how to recover from that with grace. And that's kind of like the Monet idea, right? It looks perfect from far away, but up close, it's a mess. Like my life's a mess. Your life's probably a mess. Everybody's life's a mess.
Right.
Like, let's just talk about it. Let's try not to pretend that it isn't.
It's how you handle it, the grace in which you handle it, you know, because
Right.
no, if you're expecting her to be perfect, no one's expecting you to be perfect, but like take the opposite of perfect. And that's kind of how you've been rolling with it. You know, that would have been the good time for her PR team to like step up and be like, this is how it's handled now, because you can't undo it, you know.
Yeah.
But how do you come out with it with the most grace? And, you know, because I don't think she's a bad person. No one thinks she's a bad person. It's just like sometimes we missay the wrong things and we don't mean to come across so offensive, like you said. And we live in a time where it's like everyone's learning, you know, and no one ever means, no one's ever
We're learning as a society together.
evil intended, but it is easy to offend someone if you're not careful of which the things you're saying, you know, and it's like, my goodness, even in a crazy world where your message is like understood by somebody, your word choices were horrible. You know, it's like even your message, whatever, you can think whatever about the message. Oh, you work hard to have that privilege, whatever. That's not the problem. It was the thing that you said, the sweet lady that cleans my toilets. That was the problem. You know, it's like, you got to be careful on how and what
it was
you
the
say.
implied message that that lady does not work as hard as she works. That was really offensive, I think, across the board to everyone. And me as not a fan of hers already, if she had handled this situation and had come out in the news with her making some kind of statement that was really heartfelt and really kind of a teaching moment for herself and for everyone else, I might have become a fan. Who knows?
That's the thing. She could have gained a lot of new fans that way. It would have been good for her business.
Yeah.
You know, had she had shown a humanization in a way where it shows a lesson being learned and she's applying the things that she teaches, you know?
Yeah.
But it's like, it was almost this like bratty, like really uneducated, like teenager response of like
Exactly.
no one got to her quick enough to tell her that was the wrong thing to do.
It was very Regina George.
Yes, that's what it reminded me. I'm like, ew, like, and then I was like, wait, is that who you actually are the whole time? Like, and that's why as a fan, I'm like, have I been duped this whole time? Because if that's who you truly are and you're pretending to be someone you're not, thanks for the fake, but I don't need that, you know, because it did come across very Regina George where it was like, no.
No, it's not a good look.
On that, you know.
And so many celebrities now are being much more authentic with their fans and their followers than ever before in history. I mean, if you look at back in the way back in like the 40s, 50s, 60s, celebrities, you know, we never saw them in real life, right?
No.
They were always a curated image and usually had a completely separate, secret behind the scenes life that they were living that had absolutely nothing to do,
right?
Yeah, with their public persona. And now we live in a time where celebrities have direct access to their fans through social media and they're making the most of it. And so many people have built up this huge following just by being authentic and showing their real lives.
Did you see the latest Will Smith thing that came out?
No, I didn't see it.
He posted, like, it was either on TikTok, he posted it everywhere, but like he literally gained like 20 pounds over the and he's showing it off like, this is who I am, like this is where I'm starting. But he's being so transparent with like his body image at the moment, and that he knows he needs to change it, that it's like it's helped his image in a positive way. Like people are really inspired by it
And that's
because
what
like,
I love. I love when
you
celebrities pull
know,
back the curtain a little bit and tell us,
yeah,
look, we may not be like exactly like you. We know we're privileged, but we have some of the same struggles you do. Things don't always go exactly perfectly. It's not, we don't live in a movie. And celebrities like Chrissy Teigen, Will Smith, like that, when they show the real life, whether it's a fail or a win, we feel so much more attached to them, and so
we do.
like they're our friends, like we
We
can
do.
relate.
I mean, when
And it
Chrissy
also
Teigen
helps.
went through what she went through,
Yeah.
I mean, it was almost like it's such a widespread thing, and so many people needed someone to be a voice for that
Hmm.
situation. That it's
Yeah.
like if she hadn't shared that, a lot of people wouldn't have had that opportunity to have that voice and to like know that somebody else out there was really truly like them and was so transparent about what they went through. Like we need you to be we almost need you to make some mistakes every now and then to show us that you're human, and then show us that you're just like us. But when you go and you do it in a way where it's like you said, Regina George, it who that's not how what we teach our children. That's not what we teach. That's not how we treat each other. And you should always just own up to what you do and do it with the most grace that you possibly can. So
Yeah. And I think that there's a huge push right now, like when people, even non-celebrities, if they're saying things on social media that are offensive, and this happened a lot during the last, presidential administration, and when we were having so many protests and things that were going on last year, there were a lot of people who went on social media and were saying really offensive things. And the public at large went after them, and they found out where these people worked, where they live, and they were calling employers and telling them, they're posting all this racist stuff on social media. And those are people who are not celebrities, right? And I think if you're really being offensive and you have a job, especially in the public sector, you just need to be aware that everything you say is now on the internet forever and ever if you post it, and you're going to be held accountable. And I have no problem with that. But what I do think is that we should normalize people learning and growing and changing their opinions when they have new information. And we're being taught so much more. I follow a huge variety of people on social media. My social feed is people who look like me and who live like me, and people who look nothing like me and live nothing like me. And by doing that, I'm exposed to a lot of different types of people that maybe I would never be exposed to otherwise. And that is helping me personally, like, grow as a person, learn as a person, try to see things from other people's perspective, and just listen. And so I think there's a huge normalization that needs to happen about doing better as we learn new things, as we have more information, doing better, learning, growing, making mistakes, and then correcting ourselves. So I think if we jump on someone for a mistake without giving them that opportunity to correct themselves, that is not what I'm about. But she did make 2 apologies, neither one of which hit the mark for me. So she had a great opportunity and she didn't use it.
yeah, that was my biggest issue, was like, okay, well, where was your team there? Like, it just was almost like it didn't happen so quickly. But when like something happens and then like the PR team was sleeping and then like too many mistakes had been made
Yeah.
before they could catch up. And it's like, what were you thinking? And it's almost like you just go into that instant defense mode. We all have it, we're all just grown up children, really. But you have to realize, especially someone I've heard her talk about it. She talks about it on her podcast, her hours and how hard she works. For someone who's like 90% of the day revolves around her business and her image and like life change and stuff like that. Like that should have been the first thing on her mind when she was responding to the initial videos was like, I have to keep my image in mind, you know, even if it's not genuine, like you don't go with the natural attack mode that you would if you were, say, like my 9-year-old, you know, where it's like, what's the first thing that came to my mind? Blah, you know, like that's what it felt like. And then you're just like, what are you not? I don't even want to throw my kid under the bus like that, but it did feel like that. You know what I mean? Where it's like, you just say the first thing that comes to your mind because you're just whatever. And so, but yeah, we get it. We're all human. And then even when we make mistakes, I've made mistakes on mistakes before. I'm not perfect, you know, but it's like, that's why time will tell to see how she handles it. Because if she just goes about business as usual and expects those very wishy-washy apologies that she did to like hold the test of time and hold her brand on long enough to keep people on and build, that's crazy. You know, you do have to kind of revisit in a way somehow, whether it's literally a whole podcast on like on the subject where you're just speaking to people and you're being yourself and you're being open and you're being like ready to be completely transparent about that. You know, you can't hold on to whatever it is she's holding on. I feel like she's holding on to something. I feel like you should
but at the same time though, if she goes on as business as usual and doesn't really address it again, all we can do is come to the conclusion that she really did feel the way that she expressed, and that's why she wasn't truly apologetic about it or had a clear message of regret.
Exactly.
And okay, this is who this person is.
Something.
And so that she's going to refine her follower group to people who think like her, and there'll probably still be a market for it, but it won't be as broad reaching.
When your whole thing is helping people with their life and you're living your life in a way that no one approves of, it's like, who's going to buy into it at that point? It's like, I don't know, unless you happen to stumble across her and have never heard about the controversy before, you know, or you truly don't see anything wrong in her actions and the things she said. I mean, I'm sure there's people out there that are like, I just don't see the problem.
Oh, I'm sure. But it rubbed a lot of people the wrong way too, how she was promoting, you know, relationship-based books and a marriage podcast, while behind the scenes, her marriage was falling apart. And that seemed to a lot of people, I think, like a money grab. Because
I reached out to find her because of relationship advice. You know, I found her and her then husband's because of that. You know, because I was looking for ways to just help with my own personal issues. And so when she went from what seemingly was like a happy health, no one's perfect, but they were open about what they would do when things were problematic and in a rut. Like they felt like if there was a problem, they would be, not like we'll have to be an open book about it, but it felt like so like out of nowhere that it almost did feel like, how long were you going to like pretend?
How long were you going to go on with this? Right. Because you know what I mean? Yeah, I've been through a divorce and it doesn't happen overnight, very rarely, unless there's some cataclysmic
want to go and
event.
Talk about it, but you gotta cop up to it at some point. And if you wait too long, it just feels like, okay, were you just trying to sell more books? I don't, you know.
That's what it feels like. Yeah. And that's unfortunate because, you know, everyone's relationship has issues. Nobody has a perfect relationship. And that could have segued if she had been more authentic or open about it and what the issues they were going through with. I mean, they were already choosing to put it out in the public, their relationship, as a model of relationships, right?
Yep.
So if you're really honest and you go through, okay, we're struggling with this at this moment, and then it's a natural progression to this is the decision that we've made, and then you can segue that into how to transition, how to recover from that. And there's a big audience for that too. So there's a way to do it authentically and still be on brand. You just can't.
Do you feel like, because you have been through it, do you feel like you could have been able to talk about that transition during the time of your transition? Because like, I know for her, I don't even think she's actually full blown like had a podcast and addressed it, because like they were together for so long and it was like her first real relationship. Like it was such a raw wound that it was like, if I was in her shoes, would I be able to talk about that while I was in the process of talking about it? Or would I just go straight silent about it until I could actually say the words out loud? You know?
Yeah, I would have needed time to process
Yeah.
what was even going on in my head before I could talk about it.
Yeah.
And I when I went through my divorce, like one of my biggest, the reason it took me so long to get divorced, I knew it wasn't working. I knew I needed to end it and get divorced. What took me the longest was my fear of how everyone around me was going to react. And you know, my dad has been married a lot of times, and I also I wanted to be the exception. I didn't want to do the same mistakes. I thought it was going to be like, I'm super committed, but that only goes as far as it goes. You know, at some point you have to make the decision that's healthiest for yourself and your kids. And I did that, but it was really scary. And I felt like I was going to be judged from everyone. I felt like everyone had thought, you know, my marriage was going to fail from the start. We got married. I was very young when I got married, and my ex was very much older than me. And I thought, okay, I'm going to prove everybody right, and everyone's going to say I told you so. And I just didn't want to hear it. So it went on a lot longer than it should have. And I'm sure a lot of people feel that way, and a lot of people would have the same situation.
Yeah.
And then it's like, how do you tell everybody? How do you make a big, if you're not a celebrity couple, you're not going to make a big PR announcement. So you have to tell all your families, you have to tell all your mutual friends.
And then you have your kids' images to protect too, because she has kids, and you know, it's like, that's like a big thing, you know, to have to do. So it's like, I don't want to sit here and judge that part, but it does raise, that's the problem, is that when you make a mistake like she made, then everything else in your life is
under a
looked at
microscope.
like under a microscope. Then people take something like that and they go, were you just trying to make money? Or, you know, they look at everything. You know, they were also looking at like how she grew up, and did she come from privilege, and has this always been something she's always thought about, you know? And it's like, nobody would have ever probably opened those doors had you had not said that one comment, you know? So when you're a brand, when you're a person that has any sort of public eye being looked at in front of you, then all of a sudden, like, all these detectives go into work and they like really dive into it. And then all of a sudden now you're having multiple accusations coming up about you that you were not expecting because you made one bad TikTok video, you know? So I don't know. I'm like, I don't know if maybe she should have talked about the transition period, because that's probably hard for her, but now it makes her look like she was just trying to make money off of people, you know?
Well,
because
and I think a good comparison is right at the same time that this was happening, that picture of Khloe Kardashian got posted and then immediately taken down. And unfortunately, once it's out there, it's out there. So she had gone public asking people not to repost it, asking people to delete it if they had a copy. And it was not a bad photo of her. I think actually she looks gorgeous. It was just an unedited photo of her in a bikini. She's still, her body is like amazing. Like, she's done so much work. She, you know, worked hard on her fitness and her body. She had a whole show about it. So I thought she looked amazing.
The people that are going to rip it apart.
Yeah,
you know,
I thought she looked amazing.
horrible.
And there was a huge backlash against her asking to take the photo down, saying, you know, you and your sisters perpetuate body image issues in young women, and you've made yourself a public brand and your body a public brand by having shows like Revenge Body. And while I see their point, she handled it properly, which was the major difference between these two scenarios. First, she wasn't offending anybody or any specific group of people. She was only talking about herself, but she made a very public post where she talked about her own body image issues and said, you know, since she started being in the public light, people have torn apart her body, nitpicked her way she looks, been very cruel, mean, given her self-esteem issues that she still struggles with to this day. And while she does think that photo is a beautiful photo, she takes the time to edit and curate all her photos. And so she just wanted it taken down. And I think even though she's a celebrity, she does have that right of privacy. And and when she's that honest about the fact that she does have these confidence issues and body image issues, that makes people much more sympathetic to what she's saying and feel much more connected to her. So I think she probably even gained fans in how she handled that. And that's, you know, another example.
That just comes from a seasoned, like, professional. I mean, the Kardashians have had like every 90 seconds, there's something they have to, like, you know, their PR team has to work on.
machine.
You know, poor Rachel Hollis is like working with whatever. It's like, oh, this is my first real issue. This is not how I handle it, I guess, you know.
Yeah.
I feel like next time if there's an issue, there will certainly be hopefully more of an in-depth, more human like attempt of an apology. And like, because yeah, I mean, try and be Khloe Kardashian for one day and handle 15 of the comments. Like, they're vicious, you know? So
vicious.
and then she has to go home and look in the at the end of the day when everyone's gone home and the phone's not even down, she has to look in the mirror and then sit with those comments, you know? So
Right.
if you can just avoid something that could, I'm sorry, like I know it's totally off topic, but it's also not. I remember my mom told me, you remember Karen Carpenter?
Yeah.
I remember my mom would tell me how to like, she always taught me to like be very careful with how you spoke about people, because Karen Carpenter started an eating disorder because she overheard someone at a restaurant talking about how she looked.
Yeah.
And it's just
I
that
remember
always
that.
stuck with me, that like anything you say can just be taken in such a way and can cause such a negative reaction. I've had people, you know, when I was pregnant, ask me if I was trying to like lose weight or stay a certain weight, like nitpicking people's image. Whether it's like you're overweight or underweight, it really can mess with the psyche.
No,
So
it
just
totally
simply
does.
taking down a photo just so she avoids that bad experience, I get that 100%, you know. And she did it really well because she explained exactly that, and she did it in a way where it's like, I'm not trying to appear perfect, I'm just trying to protect my soul, which is at the end of the day what I need to protect the most, you know, above anything.
And for her younger fans and people who do, you know, and girls in their preteens and teens that are in the middle of that, the body image stuff that goes on in that age frame, would read that and feel like, okay, I'm not alone in the fact that I look in the mirror and I nitpick my body. Look at how she looks amazing, and she's still feeling that. So
we all edit our
normal.
photos before we post them. Don't come at her for editing her photos. Like, we all do it, you know. It's just easy to pick on someone like that, you know.
Yeah.
And it just shows you that you can do something that people don't necessarily think is a good thing, and this is how you handle it versus how you do not handle it, you know.
Right. So we look to celebrities for you know, for how to do anything from fitness to how to live to relationship advice to all of that, but we also need to be looking at them, looking to them for how to recover from, you know, missteps, and how to course correct when we're on the wrong course, and how to apologize sincerely when you've offended someone or hurt someone. And we get some celebrities who obviously are totally delivering on that, and we get some celebrities who, like Rachel Hollis, are just falling short.
Yeah.
So
it's a good reminder, even if you're not even on a public platform, this is how to apologize. This is how not to apologize. You know, this is how to, you know, do it in a way where it comes across sincere. Because that's the other thing, is if she does a full-blown apology, will the sincerity be there? I don't know. It's like, how many times has it come across so insincere that it almost feels like
too little too late.
A little too late, but also still obligatory and necessary. You still have to do it. I don't know if I'll believe you, but if you don't do it, it's worse.
It's worse, yeah, for sure.
It's way worse.
I know I've made a million mistakes in my life, and I've hurt people deeply, unintentionally, mostly. I mean, I try. I really am not a malicious person.
For the most part, it was not with the intention.
Not intentional, but I have. I mean, I've done things where, you know, people had to come to tell me, hey, what you just did really hurt me.
Yeah.
And so I try, when I apologize, and I do this even with my children, because I've made parenting mistakes. I've reacted bad to situations that happened where I had to come, and I think it's important also to apologize to your kids when you mess up. But when I apologize to anyone, I try to say, look, my intentions were not to hurt you. Now that I know that I have, these are the steps that I'm going to take to make sure that that doesn't happen again. And that, to me, is a sincere apology, where you actually show action points of how you're not going to repeat that.
Yeah.
That makes the other person feel heard and feel secure when they walk away from that situation, that they're not, you know, they don't need to have their guard up, that you're not going to do that thing again. And I
agree. I think if anything, she needs to invest in someone who does this for a living, to tell her, like, this is how we're handling it from this point forward, if you want to recover. Hopefully she has, because like, I don't even know how, if I was in her shoes, how I would handle it. I just know that, like, no more little apologies. Just like, show us show us with your actions, and the content that you put forth and the way you utilize your social media. Like that should be monitored through some sort of PR team. I'm sorry, TikTok, like I get it, we're all supposed to be our authentic selves, but like that was just way too authentic.
No, but try not to be your authentic self if your authentic self is being a Karen. Like
right?
try not to do that.
Yeah,
be a different
like
person.
she likes using those platforms to really just be her, like she's utilized them when she's having a hard day and just like reminded people that you can, like she had like a really good TikTok once that I reposted that was just talking about like when you've had a really hard day, like how to not like kick yourself too hard about it. Like it was a really good message. Like she knows how to use that platform for good. It's not just this like dump of thoughts place that you're just supposed to just be like, this is on my mind right now, like I'm in a rant here because so
I've seen plenty of those. Yeah,
I know. So I feel like if anything, everyone's going to be watching her a little bit more than they were, just to see where she goes from here. And
well, and if she's going to try
next.
to, if her second apology really put this on her team, then she needs to maybe have more diversity in her team, and maybe that's how she addresses this by saying, I have more diverse perspectives to kind of bounce things off of now. And I'm getting, more information so that I don't, do this again, because maybe she's just surrounding herself with people exactly like herself.
Yep. That could be true. Though she might have to do some looking into her team, because I mean, we all make mistakes, but it's like, it's how you recover from those mistakes that are big, and how you move forward from them are even bigger. Because like you can say I'm sorry, but it's like if your actions don't meet your words, then no one's going to believe your apologies. Yeah.
It's a tough situation. Hopefully she, I just hope, because she does have such a big following, that she's able to address this in a little bit clearer and more effective way, because it would be a good example for all the people who do follow her, and we all need that example.
We do. We do. I hope for the best for her too, because I mean, with this new shift, when your whole business is based on being around people, and that's been shut down for a year, and then a lot of your business is based on your marriage, and then that is shifted too. Like this is a completely new time for her to completely rebrand and reshift, and it's like this has to go with it, and in order for people to embrace the new Rachel Hollis that she's trying to put out there and rebrand herself, you have to like make sure you're surrounding yourself with a good team that has your best intentions in mind, and might be just like slightly better than you, so that when you make these mistakes, they know how to handle it in the most professional way. Because you may not know what to do. You shouldn't have to figure it out yourself all the time.
Yeah. And maybe just, don't respond to the negative comments if you're not in the headspace to make a productive response. She didn't need to respond to the girl who told her she wasn't relatable. She could have left it at that. So.
Yeah, you can go silent. You can also, like, I know a lot of celebrities, when they post something that they think might be controversial, whether it's a photo or something, they just turn the comments off. Like I don't know if you can do that for TikTok, but I know Instagram you can, where it's like you don't even give them the choice to be mean or bait you into trying to because sometimes you just can't help it, and you just want to just but you can't.
No.
You have to go silent.
If you look at whatever the person is saying to you, and sometimes people just are mean, and there's no productivity behind what they're saying. They're just stabbing, they're just poking. But sometimes people are saying things that maybe you should take a little bit to heart and say, hey, what, this person is feeling this way about what I said. What's my percentage of responsibility there? Is there a learning opportunity here, or is that person just being spiteful and mean? Before and really kind of sit with that for a minute before you react, because
it's natural. The more followers you have, the more people out there that are going to attack you like that. And
it's natural to be defensive, but if you can actually like think about it for a minute, and maybe there is something for you to learn. I try to learn from every experience I have, and I've failed at it a million times, but I like to think that's how I am where I am, is by actually asking myself, when things happen to me, what's my percentage of responsibility here? And sometimes the answer is, it's really low. It's like 5%. This was mostly the other person. But sometimes I have to have that hard conversation with myself where I say, okay, you have some responsibility here.
That's
You
incredibly mature. It's hard to
put yourself
do.
in a,
It really
yeah.
is hard to do because you instantly want to just go into what the other person's doing to make you this way. And it's like,
And sometimes though, like in my own life, I've had people do really bad things to me. And when I ask myself, what's my percentage? And I've taught my kids to ask themselves that too, when something happens to them, what's my percentage of responsibility? Sometimes my percentage of responsibility is I knew that I had a bad friend and I didn't cut that off. I let them continue to be around me until they hurt me, or I was in the wrong place doing the wrong thing, or I didn't listen to the voice inside my head that told me this situation is sketchy, or it could be anything. It could be I wasn't prepared for this, so next time I'm going to be prepared for that. Or you have bad people and you need to weed out your garden a little bit. Like there's always something I can take from every situation and try to improve.
it's just like, when in life do you pick up on that message? It's like,
Yeah.
I didn't pick up on that message until I was in my 30s. And even then, it's still a daily reminder of like, it's a daily reminder, but sometimes you don't pick up it until much, much later. And then, you're still living your life like a Regina George for a
Yeah.
while. And then
And I
you don't
think
hold it.
sometimes like when our kids are small, that's where you plant those seeds. You
Yes.
start when they're little. If they forgot their jacket and they're cold all day at school, then the question is, that must have been really hard. Like, what can we do next time to make sure we remember our jacket, like, and have them problem solve for themselves?
Mhm.
Because those little conversations will help you be able to handle big mess ups like this, what we're talking about today.
Yeah.
Like being able to take responsibility for your actions, whether it's, forgetting your lunch when you're 7, or or not turning in that permission slip for something you really wanted to do when you're a kid, or whatever or having bad friends. Taking responsibility for your actions like that and learning how to self-correct is a huge tool. And I can see a lot of adults that I interact with where I'm like, wow, okay, you didn't learn that lesson when you were
Exactly.
little. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's not an easy thing to learn as an adult,
No.
especially if you are a successful adult and you're
Oh,
surrounded with people who are yes people and tell you how great and wonderful you are.
yeah.
Then you
It's hard to
really,
admit you're
it's
wrong.
hard. Yeah.
It is.
And it's hard to hold
That's
yourself accountable when people around you don't hold you accountable, which I think is true for a lot of celebrities and super
Mhm.
successful people. They
Yeah.
get away with a lot
They
of bad
hire their
behavior.
friends or people that just want to people please or tell them they're great, and then they
Mhm.
never really have that mirror that they can't avoid, reflecting back inward.
And
Oh
they don't
boy.
have the same kind of natural consequences that normal people have, where if you treat someone unkindly, they're going to say, screw you, goodbye.
Yeah.
And maybe celebrities, it doesn't work that way.
Mhm.
So
No,
yeah.
that's true. That's a very good point, because their jobs depend on it. Who's going to
Mhm.
come and be like, what but you do need to have someone in there that will sit you down, handle it for you in a way where they're like helping you coach through what you should do next, but also making sure that you're learning what you're doing was wrong and you're also taking that lesson yourself. You shouldn't let all of your PR team handle it, because then you're just out there making those same mistakes and having someone else clean up your mess.
Yeah.
Hopefully she really truly understands what the problem was. Someone of some sort of profession can help her handle it from this point forward, but she also learned something from it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
And to have a little bit more respect for the people who follow you and who spend their money, whether they earn that money scrubbing toilets or whether they earn that money, being CEO, it doesn't matter. We all work for our money. Spending that money on your books, on your, coaching things, whatever it is that you do, you have to have like the utmost respect for the people that put you in the situation you're in, the people
Mhm.
that are choosing to spend their dollars on you as
yeah,
a
because you're
brand.
not the only one out there that does what it is that you do. There
Right.
are other people that they can go follow that might have a little bit of like more of a sensitivity chip inside, that aren't going to, just openly speak like, and again, we're all allowed to make mistakes. I don't know
Mhm.
her personally. She could be a really fantastic person who just happened to make some really bad mistakes, and that's all fine and good, but it's like, how are you going to fix it from this point forward? Because what you do, even though it's great, there's more people out there that do that as well. And you got to not only retain your followers that liked you before all this happened, but you want to also build a new following at some point that aren't going to just associate your name with this thing that happened. Because there's a lot of people that like had never heard about her or don't follow her like I do. And now that's all they associate it with, you know, because TikTok's a big machine, you know, and if you're viral enough or if you're talked about enough, then that's just all your name can be associated with, especially if you've never had any other interaction with her before. You know,
yeah, agree.
So you got to like undig that hole now, you know, of people that like only know you by this, you know, that's not good. So,
well, now, I mean, you're in the all publicity is good publicity, they used to say, right? So
not now,
but
No.
she's in the news. She has that opportunity to kind of hopefully
that's true.
Say something meaningful. I'm listening now. I wasn't listening to her before. Now I'm listening because I want to see
where she goes from here.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
We all are, because we're like, girl, stop apologizing. Just do something else. You know, like make a move on this chess game. Stop like, you know, waiting around. So yeah, but I mean, from like I said, from a fan's perspective, I was disappointed because I felt like I was watching like a magic show, and then all of a sudden, like all of like the tricks of the magician had been revealed, and I'm like, this wasn't as cool as I thought it was. Like,
yeah,
you know?
When you're at the puppet show and you finally see the strings, you have to just kind of.
It makes me not want eager to tune into her next episode, because I'm like, even if it finds me well, there's this sense of BS behind it that I'm always kind of like on the radar for. That it's like, even as a fan, I'm just like, where do I go from here? You know, like. I'm staying tuned for sure, but I'm like, I'm kind of like, I'll go one way or the other at this point, you know, when before I was a very big fan of hers. I used to repost her stuff a lot, and I used to reference her a lot. And now I kind of feel foolish because it makes me feel almost associated with what she felt.
And I'm not a big cancel culture person. I do think everybody gets benefit of the doubt, and everybody gets to correct their mistakes. But so that's why I'm not into canceling Rachel Hollis, but I definitely want to see where she goes from here. I think it could go wildly either way.
But if you were a fan of hers and you were listening to her for like life advice, and then this happened, and then you continued, would there be a certain sense of like unsureness of whether what she was saying was legit or not? You know,
I don't know, because you know, it's like if you're going to therapy and you find out your therapist is going to therapy.
You find out your therapist is terrible.
Or her life is a mess, or she's in therapy herself, or whatever. You know, does that make the advice she gave you null and void? Not necessarily.
That's true. But I mean, if her first episode is how to be relatable, I'm gonna laugh.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. That's true.
It's all like deserve. Alice in Wonderland, right? Who said, "I give very good advice, but I very seldom listen to it."
So we follow it. Yeah, no, I'm totally about the cancel culture thing. I am not about either. I'll be interested to see how you fix this, because it's so
we're all staying tuned to see what she does next.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right. So next episode we'll be back to discuss more.
Yep. Well, thanks, Kelly. I had fun today.
Yes, I did too.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. Don't forget to bookmark our site, she'safullonmonet.com, and subscribe to our newsletter. You can also find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. If you're enjoying this podcast, it helps us a lot if you can follow, rate, and review. See y'all next week.